The air was thick with the scent of fresh roses. The hall bathed in a warm golden hue from the ornate chandeliers overhead. Friends and family had come from near and far, filling the room with murmured conversations, laughter, and the soft melodies of the string quartet playing in the corner. But amidst the crowd and cheer, my eyes searched for just one face, Michael's. As I stepped out of the dressing room, my bridesmaids gasped in unison. "You look breathtaking, Sophia Clara," my oldest friend whispered, her eyes misting up. But my thoughts were consumed by Michael's distant behavior over the past week. "Is he all right?" I asked my soon-to-be sister-in-law, Lisa, hoping she might have some insights. She hesitated. "He's just nervous, I guess. But don't worry, it's a big day for him, too." I tried to brush off the unease, focusing on the joyous occasion. And as the wedding march began and the doors opened to the grand hall, my heart fluttered with excitement and trepidation. Walking down the aisle, I locked eyes with Michael. Unlike our engagement, where his eyes twinkled with mischief and love, today they seemed clouded. Each step I took felt heavier, the weight of Michael's distant gaze pressing down on me. As we stood side by side at the altar, I whispered, "Michael, what's wrong?" He looked down, taking a deep breath before replying. "It's just, everything feels so rushed. I'm worried, so..." Confused, I pressed about us. He hesitated. "No, not us. Just everything else." His vague answer only added to my distress. The ceremony continued, but my mind raced with a million thoughts. When we were declared husband and wife, and our lips met for the first kiss, the audience cheered. Still, in the pit of my stomach, I felt an unease that hadn't been there before. At the reception, amidst the clinking of glasses and the hearty laughter, Claire pulled me aside. "Soph, are you okay?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. I looked at Michael, who was now engaged in a heated conversation with his friends, his brow furrowed. "I don't know," I admitted, trying to shake off the overwhelming feeling. "I just hope this is just wedding day jitters." Little did I know then that this was only the beginning of our tumultuous journey ahead. The sun kissed the horizon, casting a mesmerizing glow over the crystal-clear waters. Our honeymoon destination, a secluded beach resort in the Maldives, was the stuff of dreams. But as days turned into nights, the beauty around us sharply contrasted with the growing storm inside our little cocoon. Our first evening began promisingly. The gentle sound of waves crashing against the shore, a candlelit dinner on the beach, and a sky bursting with stars. Michael held my hand, saying, "We needed this, Soph. Just us, away from everything." I squeezed his hand, hoping to recapture the intimacy that seemed to be slipping away. "It's beautiful here, isn't it?" He nodded but appeared lost in thought. Sensing his distance, I attempted to bridge the gap. "Michael, talk to me. What's on your mind?" He sighed, avoiding my gaze. "It's just..." "But this is our honeymoon," I said, trying to bring back the joy. "We should leave those worries for later." He looked up, eyes filled with a mix of fear and frustration. "It's not that easy, Sophia. Every time I think about returning, all those unpaid bills, the responsibilities, they'll haunt me." The weight of his words hung heavily between us, the romantic evening overshadowed by looming concerns. As the days went by, Michael spent hours on his phone, scrolling through job listings or engaging in hushed, tension-filled calls. The man I thought I'd be sharing romantic strolls and passionate nights with was increasingly absent, replaced by someone consumed by stress. One afternoon, as we lounged by the pool, I tried to break the ice. "How about snorkeling tomorrow? I heard the coral reefs here are breathtaking." Michael, engrossed in an email, replied distractedly, "Maybe, if I can finish up some applications." Feeling sidelined, I blurted, "This isn't the honeymoon I imagined, Michael. It feels like we're miles apart, even when sitting next to each other." He looked up, irritation evident. "I'm trying, Sophia." "Do you think I want to be in this situation?" His words stung, creating an even wider chasm between us. Our idyllic getaway was turning into a reflection of deeper issues, unspoken frustrations, and escalating worries. By the time we boarded our flight back home, the sunny memories of the Maldives were clouded by the realization that our marriage was beginning not with a honeymoon phase, but with challenges we hadn't anticipated. Our once cozy apartment felt cold and impersonal, echoing the strained silence that had settled between us. Michael's fruitless job searches were wearing him thin. The cheerful, vivacious man I had fallen in love with seemed to be receding, replaced by a shadow of his former self. Most evenings, I'd find him on the living room couch, surrounded by job applications, rejection emails glaring back at him from the computer screen. Attempting to support him, I'd gently suggest, "How about we take a break, Michael? Maybe go out for dinner or a movie?" He'd look up, fatigue evident in his eyes. "I'm not in the mood, Sophia. These bills won't pay themselves." One evening, after coming home from a particularly grueling double shift, I found an empty whiskey bottle on the counter and Michael, not at his computer, but slouched in a chair, a vacant expression on his face. "Michael, what's going on?" My voice was filled with concern. He slurred, "What's the point, Soph? No one wants to hire me." My heart ached, seeing him like this. "You're not a burden. We're in this together, but drowning yourself in alcohol isn't the answer." He laughed bitterly. "What do you know about it? You have a job. You're not stuck here feeling useless every single day." His words, soaked in alcohol and despair, stung. Night after night, he began disappearing, only to come home in the wee hours of the morning, drunk and desolate. The sweet memories of our early days were fast becoming a distant dream, replaced by the acidic tang of arguments and the acrid smell of stale alcohol. One particularly tumultuous night, I confronted him. "Where were you, Michael?" He stumbled in, reeking of booze. "Out." "Why? You my mother now." Tears welled up in my eyes. "I'm your wife. I'm worried about you." He scoffed. "Yeah, right. More like you're embarrassed by your jobless husband." I retorted, exasperated. "This isn't you. I don't recognize this man standing in front of me." He sneered. "Maybe you never really knew me." The growing rift between us seemed insurmountable. My once romantic dream was quickly turning into a nightmarish reality. The bonds that once held us close were fraying. The love and understanding that formed the foundation of our relationship eroding under the constant strain of financial stress and Michael's descent into despair. The apartment had begun to feel like a battleground, each room echoing past arguments and simmering tensions. The love and comfort I once found within its walls were replaced by trepidation, as I never knew which Michael I'd come home to. The despondent, distant man or the irate, unpredictable drinker. One evening, the air was especially thick with tension. I had just returned from another exhausting shift, the weight of our expenses pressing heavily on my shoulders. As I entered, I saw scattered bills on the dining table, each read past, due stamp screaming at me. In the dim light, I could make out Michael's silhouette, an open bottle by his side. "Michael," I began cautiously, "we need to talk about these bills." He looked up, his eyes bloodshot. "Oh, so now you want to talk? After spending all day at your, so important job?" I tried to maintain my composure. "I'm working for both of us, remember? We need to face these problems together." He laughed bitterly, the sound chilling to the bone. "Together." You think I don't see the way you look at me, like I'm some pathetic loser. I shot back, frustration evident. I'm trying, Michael, but it feels like I'm the only one pulling the weight here. He surged to his feet, knocking the bottle over. You think I don't know that? You think I'm blind to your pity and disdain? Feeling cornered and desperate to defuse the situation, I said, I don't pity you. I just want the man I married back. Michael's face contorted with anger. Maybe he's gone because of you. Before I could process his words, he continued with venom. You think this rent is enough? Your meager paycheck. You don't earn enough. You're useless. I felt a mixture of anger and hurt. I'm doing the best I can. And if you weren't so busy drowning your sorrows, maybe you'd see that. It was as if a switch had been flipped. His face contorted in rage, and before I knew it, his hand shot out, connecting with my cheek. The impact sent me reeling, the sharp sting of betrayal more painful than the physical blow. Cradling my face, tears streaming down, I looked up at him, my voice a whisper, "How could you?" He seemed momentarily stunned by his own actions. The volatile anger replaced by a glimmer of the Michael I once knew, but the damage was done. The unspoken boundaries of our love and respect had been shattered. This was our breaking point. The line that should never have been crossed had been irrevocably changing the trajectory of our relationship. The next morning, I woke up with my cheek throbbing and my resolve solidifying. The reflection in the bathroom mirror was that of a woman changed, a bruise marring her face, but determination burning in her eyes. As I mulled over the previous night's events, the seed of an idea began to take root in my mind. Michael had left in a drunken stupor after the incident, and I seized this opportunity to set my plan in motion. My fingers flew over my phone, calling charitable organizations and explaining the situation. To my surprise, many were understanding and willing to help. With each call, my resolve only strengthened. Clara, always my pillar of support, arrived an hour later. "Oh, so," she gasped upon seeing my face. "Are you sure about this?" I nodded more than ever. He can't continue to control me or make me feel worthless. Together, we started packing Michael's belongings. Clothes, gadgets, shoes, even some mementos from our happier days. Boxes filled up quickly, each item a reminder of the man he once was and the man he had become. As evening approached, a representative from a local charity arrived. "Mrs. Turner, we're here to pick up the donations." "Thank you," I said, handing over the boxes, each one lifting a weight off my shoulders. "Please make sure they're put to good use." Hours later, the apartment was void of all traces of Michael, save for the lingering memories. In his place were divorce papers neatly laid out on the dining table, awaiting his return. The door creaked open late at night, Michael's slurred voice echoing, "Sophia." I stepped out, holding my ground, gonated. "To people who will appreciate them." His eyes widened in shock, darting around the empty room. You raised your hand to me, Michael," I replied, my voice steely. "That was the last straw." His anger surged. "You'll pay for this." I coolly handed him the divorce papers. "Sign these, or the next call I make is to the police." His eyes flitted to my bruised cheek, realization dawning. "You wouldn't." "Try me." The balance of power had shifted. No longer the victim, I had reclaimed my agency and self-worth. As he stormed out, I felt a mixture of relief and newfound strength. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. I was no longer bound by fear or intimidation. The days leading up to the trial were a blur of lawyer consultations, recounting my ordeal and rallying support from friends and family. The anxiety was overwhelming, but it was also coupled with a newfound determination. I wasn't just fighting for a divorce, I was fighting for justice. Clara accompanied me to court on the day of the hearing. As we entered, she whispered reassuringly, "Remember, you're not alone in this. We're all behind you." I nodded, taking a deep breath. The courtroom felt cold and sterile, but my resolve burned hotter than ever. Then Michael entered. Seeing him after weeks in the cold light of the courtroom was jarring. Gone was the confident swagger. In its place, a man who looked diminished, hollowed out. Our eyes met for a brief moment. His held a mixture of anger and fear. The hearing began, and I listened as my lawyer detailed the events of that fateful night and the cycle of abuse I had endured. Hearing it all laid out, the weight of the reality hit me hard. During a recess, Clara squeezed my hand. "Stay strong, Soph. You're doing great." Returning to the stand, I recounted my side of the story. The room hung on to my every word. He changed. I began, my voice trembling but resolute. The man I married wasn't the man who stood before me that night, but that doesn't excuse what he did. Michael's lawyer tried to paint a picture of a loving husband pushed to his limits by financial strain, but the evidence was irrefutable. The photos of my bruised face, testimonials from friends and neighbors, and even some of Michael's own incriminating messages painted a damning picture. When it was Michael's turn to speak, his voice was barely above a whisper. "I never meant to hurt you, Sophia." His words, though laden with remorse, felt hollow. The damage was done. I replied, eyes fixed on him. "You had a choice. Michael, every step of the way, you chose this." As the judge announced the verdict, a divorce decree and a 5-year prison sentence for Michael, a wave of mixed emotions washed over me. Relief, sorrow for the love lost, and a sense of vindication. Leaving the courtroom, Claire hugged me tight. "It's over, Soph. You faced the monster and came out on top." I nodded, tears in my eyes. It's a new beginning. The finality of the court's decision weighed heavily on me, but beneath the burden, I felt a burgeoning sense of freedom. The chapter with Michael was closed, and it was time to write a new story for myself. The apartment, stripped of Michael's belongings, felt vast and echoing. However, instead of the painful reminders of our shared life, I now saw it as a canvas, awaiting my touch to transform it. One morning, Clara, armed with paint cans and brushes, announced, "Time to redecorate your life, Soph." With laughter and music filling the air, we painted over the scars, both on the walls and in my heart. The vibrant blues and serene greens felt like a reflection of the new life I was carving out for myself. As we painted, Clara remarked, "You seem—" I paused, brush in hand, looking around the transformed space. "It's like shedding a skin, Clara. This entire ordeal, as painful as it was, helped me discover a strength I never knew I had." Weeks turned into months, and I immersed myself in healing. Yoga classes, therapy sessions, and even a new hobby, pottery. There was something therapeutic about molding clay, shaping it, and giving it form, much like my own life's metamorphosis. One evening, after a particularly fulfilling pottery class, I sat with a fellow student, Ava, at a local cafe. She remarked, "You have this radiant energy, Sophia. Where does it come from?" I smiled, stirring my coffee from overcoming darkness. You see, not long ago, I was trapped in a toxic relationship, but breaking free, it's given me a new lease on life. Ava nodded thoughtfully. Life has a way of pushing us to our limits, only to show us our true potential. The conversations, the newfound passions, and the self-discovery journey became pillars of my liberation. I learned to appreciate the small joys, find contentment in solitude, and understand that my worth wasn't tied to anyone but myself. One breezy evening, standing on my balcony, Claire beside me, she mused, You've come a long way, Soph." I nodded, looking out at the horizon. "It feels like a rebirth, Clara." With the scars of the past serving as reminders of my resilience, I stepped into a future brimming with hope and endless possibilities. My journey from victim to survivor was testament to the human spirit's ability to heal, grow, and emerge